This story is from a female. I am a jogger. I go jogging in mornings, afternoons, and even in nights. Well, I used to at nights, after what I encountered. It's all started when my dismissal shift was extended. I work as a banker. The time for me of getting out of work is 7, but this time I got out at 9. After I finished, I went home and microwaved dinner and watched reruns of Friends. After my TV dinner, I saw that it was 10 o'clock at night. I was thinking, if it was too late to go jogging, so I made up my mind. As I put on my running tights, I went outside. However, instead of going around my neighborhood, I decided to go to a park that is 5 blocks around my house. When I arrived at the park seemed to be empty. The playground had no children playing. There was no one sitting in the benches. Despite that, the park was slightly sketchy at night, with no one, except me. Was a bit eerie to come, but some exercise will seem to clear some of it. As I was doing my laps, enjoying my jogging, having the park all to myself. Well, at least I thought I did, because, from a distance, I saw a figure walking, and he was heading to the park. When he arrived at the park, he sat down on the bench. Just by looking at him, I was beginning to pick up bad vibes. I started thinking, what is he doing at the park at this hour? Probably the same I am doing, I guessed. So I brushed it up and continued. So when I passed him, and got a close glimpse, I noticed it was a man. A man with greasy long hair, wearing a plum suit, and was thin. Very thin. Almost like he barely ate. All he kept doing was sitting with his hands together, looking down on the floor. He barely moved. Every lap I passed, he was in the same position. So after a few more laps to go, he finally changed position. As he was no longer looking down, this time, he began to look straight right at me. That face, that crazy look on his face. His eyes looked wide open, giving the most creepy smile I ever seen. It was a wide open smile. Picture Jack Nicholson from The Shining. Butterflies began to swarm inside myself, and red flags were being planted. So just to make the moment less eerie, I smiled back and said hi. He didn't reply, but instead he did something strange. He began to laugh. Not a normal laugh, but a sinister, almost forced laugh. His laughter began to break out again, and this time, my pace began to pick up, as I began to run across the park, just forgetting about the lap. I don't know why I bothered to look back. Since I did, the man got up from the bench, still laughing, and suddenly began to sprint. As I was running, I could tell he was chasing me, because the volume of his laugh was getting higher and higher. Not only do I hear his laugh, but also hear his footsteps hitting the pavement behind me. So, to avoid this crazy person chasing me, not letting my fear get the best of me, especially when tiredness was starting to sort of kick in, I did the best to pick up more of my pace, until I boosted out. As I glanced back, the laugh sound was lower down. As I escaped from him, I anxiously tried to find the key to open my door, and not only did I rapidly shut it with full force, I even put the lock from the top door and a chair, closed all my curtains in every window, and locked not only my front door, but my back door and garage door too. It was midnight, so I went to bed. and maybe some sleep would calm me down. I will admit, it did, but not until I woke up in the middle of the AM hours. I checked my phone. The time was around 2 AM, and I needed to go to the bathroom. Good thing my bathroom was next to my bedside, so I don't have to go all the way through the hallway area. As I began to do my business, my bathroom has a window. Once you think it's over, well, it wasn't, because the light shining the window suddenly began to overshadow it, almost like someone walked right past it. When I saw it, tears began to come out, assuming that the crazy laughing man has found out where I live. Not only did I assume it was him, it was really him. Cause the laughing was the accurate detail that gave it. I could hear his laugh muffling behind the walls of my house and my window, while he was having himself a good laugh. I was having myself a panicky cry. His laugh was trailing around my house, so I got my phone and dialed 911. I told my dispatcher that there's a crazy man with a hysterical laughter circulating around my house. Then the dispatcher said that she's already been receiving the same calls earlier. Next up. The police arrived, and my panic began to change to relief. When I went outside to speak to the officers, not only did 2 officers came to my house, but my neighborhood was filled with cops, as they were speaking to my neighbors, assuming they were reporting that laughing man too. The entire neighborhood didn't get enough sleep, especially me, an elderly woman who also lives on her own, who is my next door neighbor, asked me about the man that she also encountered. I replied yes. Then I asked if he circulated her home too. She replied yes. She even told me, when she was sleeping, she was woken by a laugh. She thought it was one of the neighbors having fun. But after she woke up, and into her horror, and my neighbor who has no curtains and no blinds, she saw the man staring right directly at her, laughing. And that's when she got up, running out of her room and began to call the police. The good news is that he hasn't appeared in our neighborhood for weeks. The bad news is that he hasn't been caught. But I did find out later that there was a report about a man who walks and runs, but mostly laughs. The news is that a patient from a mental asylum who beat up the owner and stole his suit, and managed to escape. There has been reports from the laughing man, not sights, more like sounds. The sounds of his laugh. He has been proclaimed as the LOL man, and just like the Jingle Bell song, you could hear him laughing all the way.